you don't have to treat all of your players equally. Now, in an earlier video, I said that the goal was to make players, all of them, feel like they were the star of a role-playing game. But today I'm here to tell you that that does not necessarily need to be the case. That you don't have to treat your players equally. And sometimes that can be a good thing. And this can be applied to a one-shot or to an actual campaign. Permit me to give you some examples and hopefully some ideas about how to unevenly incorporate players into your game. This first idea is the most important and the one that I urge everybody to try. It's simply this: have guest stars. Now, we have NPC guest stars all the time. The crazy wizard that shows up periodically, maybe the grumpy captain of the guard that they add to the story. A lot of times they introduce the plot. Just instead of being an NPC, make it a PC. If somebody can't commit, then have them show up, maybe just once if they're a friend from out of town, or maybe monthly, or once a season, once a year, depending on when they can show up. So writers, they do this all the time. They do this all the time in comics. They do it on TV, and it's great. We all love it when it happens in those mediums. Why should we as role players be any different? We should allow to have guest stars. They add to the party chemistry. They changes things up. They make a session feel special. Here's somebody who's now invested, who actually want to hear all of these stories about what happened in the campaign and that sort of thing. It really, really adds to a campaign to have guest stars. And I cannot stress how much I would suggest for you to think about having guest stars in your game. But that's not the only thing that you can do. I ran a Star Wars RPG where I used Fantasy Flight's X-Wing for all of the ship combat. So on the nights I was going to have an epic space battle, I would invite my one friend over to help me run some of the ships. To him, basically, it was just a night of playing X-Wing. But to the other players, it was part of the campaign, and whatever happened in those games would push the storyline along. Now, I've also done the exact same thing with Warhammer and D&D, having larger engagements using the Warhammer Fantasy rules. I invite some friends over to play the quote-unquote bad guys. And whatever happened would push the storyline along for the AD&D game. But to one side, it was just a game of Warhammer. To the other side, it was part of their fantasy role-playing campaign. If you have a competition in your campaign world, a joust, archery tournament, or horse race, you could actually invite some friends over to be the competitors, to give a challenge to your players. They would have a good time. It would add a lot more drama to the competition, and it will be a lot of fun. If this happens to be a card game, you could actually break out your poker chips or gold pieces and run an actual card tournament one evening. You could even have LARP elements and maybe have one of your friends slip a note to one of the players with a map or a clue to the next part of the campaign. And you have an actual tournament going on, which would be fun in and of itself, but it also pushes the story along for the campaign. Pretty good draw. Maybe you have a friend who loves to cook, loves role-playing, but doesn't really enjoy the dungeon crawl anymore. Well, have that player play a tavern keep or a wizard in the town. Come in, have some interaction with the players, some good role-playing, and then literally provides dinner for the players, with some compensation, and then goes and does whatever, leaves the table. Everybody's having fun, and you've added an extra dimension into your game. This is especially good if you have new players, especially if you have kids at the table. You create a Gandalf figure, a friend of yours that will come in, give the players some advice on gaming, and then also kind of introduce and make sure they guide them towards good role playing and how to do the role playing aspect. But then doesn't hog the spotlight, just books it when it's time for the actual adventure. Basically, there's the forest. If you make it through, I'll be on the other side, introduce another cool NPC or whatever, tell you about the magic items you found. And then that way, like I said, doesn't hog the spotlight, but can have interaction, probably enjoy it, but probably also might not want to play an entire 5-hour session with a bunch of kids. You know, a lot of us have commitments now. We can't make it to a campaign, but we still like to be a part of it. If you have a friend who's a player, who's a good role player, and you want them to incorporate them, ask them what they can do. Figure that out. Build a character around that, and then introduce them into the campaign. It'll add a lot of fun, extra dimension. You know, as a GM, you want to make characters that are appealing, that feels different. So you use different voices, maybe different body postures and that sort of thing, body language, in order to kind of, give characters an NPC flavor. This is it ramped up. You actually have an actor come in to play an NPC. Same sort of thing. I would highly, highly recommend, out of all of this, get in a guest star. But whatever you can figure out, figure it out. If you have a character, a player, a friend, maybe they can call in, or they can do a short video introducing part of the campaign. If you have a friend that loves to craft, and they don't really want to play that much, but they want to dabble in, have them come in, have them play a monster or some random NPC character, the crazy band they meet in the woods or something. Do the one shot, then they can see that their crafting is, they can interact with their craft, with what they've helped you build, but they don't have to be there for the full session. Anything like this. Find out what your friends can do, put them in. Definitely try guest stars. That's pretty much my idea. Thank you much, and happy adventuring.